All those people who are complaining and who are now anti-Caitlin Clark, why are you so mad that she actually showed respect for the women that were before her who happened to be black?
Caitlin Clark, the golden child of basketball and now Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, has found herself at the center of yet another firestorm. The moment she dared to acknowledge the legacy of black athletes in the WNBA, a storm of controversy erupted. Critics like Megyn Kelly accused her of apologizing for her white privilege, while some even twisted her words to suggest she was undermining her own success. But here's the twist. Caitlin Clark isn't running from the noise. Instead, she's taking control of the narrative. In her Time Magazine interview, Clark unapologetically praised the trailblazing black women who built the foundation of the WNBA, calling them vital to the league's growth. She didn't shy away from naming legends like Maya Moore, someone she's idolized since childhood, and emphasizing the need to continue uplifting black women in the sport. Yet somehow this simple act of allyship became ammunition for detractors who painted her as weak or overly apologetic. The question is, has Caitlin Clark really crossed a line, or are her critics simply showing their own insecurities?
Now they're all trying to act like she was somehow bullied and pressured into making these comments. So, like, your little girl can't idolize someone who respects other races and other cultures? I thought that's what y'all wanted.
And let's not forget, standing in the wings are voices like Angel Reese and Aja Wilson, who've never missed an opportunity to cast Clark in a negative light. The irony? While they thrive on tearing her down, Caitlin remains steadfast, balancing her respect for the WNBA's history with her own meteoric rise. This isn't about apologizing or bowing down, it's about having the courage to speak up while staying true to yourself. Caitlin Clark is playing a game far bigger than basketball, and this time, she's taking her critics head on. Caitlin Clark has always been clear about her admiration for the pioneers who paved the way in the WNBA, especially the legendary black athletes who have shaped the league into what it is today. Her respect for the likes of Maya Moore, whom she calls her favorite player, is not just about her skills on the court, but about her impact off it. Clark has repeatedly spoken about how important it is to uplift black women in sports, a message that resonates deeply with many, but enrages others who are quick to jump to conclusions. It's a simple statement, yet one that triggered an avalanche of criticism from those uncomfortable with acknowledging race and privilege in the context of sports.
So we see the common theme here, Roland. Whenever Caitlin Clark shows any level of appreciation or respect for black women, they hate her guts.
When Caitlin Clark talks about lifting up black female athletes, she's not diminishing her own accomplishments or the recognition she's earned. Instead, she's recognizing the historical contributions that have often been overlooked. The WNBA may have only been around for 25 years, but the voices of black women like Moore, Tamika Catchings, and Lisa Leslie have been fundamental in shaping the narrative of women's basketball. Clark's acknowledgement of their importance is a reflection of her genuine appreciation for their struggles, their triumphs, and their tireless work to elevate the game for all. In a world where white athletes are often praised without context, Clark's words seem to stir up discomfort for those who don't want to address the reality of racial disparities in sports. What's striking about Clark's remarks is how she consistently reiterates the significance of sharing the spotlight. She's not just talking about giving credit in a superficial way. She's actively working to ensure that the black athletes who helped build the WNBA continue to get their shine. This is something far beyond tokenism. It's about using her platform to amplify voices that have long been silenced or sidelined. Caitlin Clark knows what it means to be seen and heard, and she refuses to let history repeat itself when it comes to the erasure of black women's contributions in sports.
But we should have been giving her the credit. We saw the ratings, we saw the merchandise sales, we saw the attendance, but y'all want to make it about something else. Oh, what about the women that laid the foundation? What about this? What about it? That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is box office.
Yet somehow these powerful statements have been twisted into a narrative where Clark is somehow apologizing for her own privilege. Why? Because she dares to acknowledge her place within a system that's often been tilted in favor of white athletes, like herself. Critics, including prominent figures, have made it their mission to frame her as someone who is too woke, or who is throwing herself into the spotlight of racial politics. The irony here is palpable. Clark's intention was never to apologize, but to spotlight those who need the recognition. It's a perfect example of how her well-meaning words are misunderstood or misrepresented by those who are unwilling to engage in the uncomfortable truths about race and privilege in sports. For Caitlin Clark, this isn't just a matter of lip service. She is fully fully aware of her role as one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball today. And with that recognition comes the responsibility to use her voice for something greater than just herself. Whether it's acknowledging the struggles of black athletes or advocating for their visibility, Clark understands that her position isn't one she should simply sit on. Instead, she's determined to keep pushing for change even when the loudest voices criticize her every move. But despite the backlash, she remains resolute, proving that her intentions are rooted in honesty, respect, and the desire to leave a lasting impact on the game.
What Caitlin Clark does is kind of simple, really. She shows up at games, she signs autographs, she talks to little girls wearing jerseys, she smiles to the crowd, and then here's the most important thing. She competes like a maniac. I mean like a maniac.
Caitlin Clark has never been one to shy away from criticism. From her days as a rising star in college basketball to her current status as a household name in the WNBA, she's faced her fair share of detractors. But what sets her apart is how she handles that criticism. Not with defensiveness or anger, but with a level of maturity and self-assurance that far exceeds her years. In her recent Time magazine interview, Clark addressed the backlash surrounding her comments about race, privilege, and the importance of uplifting black athletes. And rather than apologizing or shrinking away, she leaned into her truth with unshakable confidence. When critics, including Megyn Kelly, accused her of apologizing for her white privilege, Clark didn't backpedal or try to explain herself away. Instead, she stood her ground, explaining that she's simply acknowledging the history of the WNBA and the undeniable role that black women have played in shaping the league. Clark's ability to block out the noise, as she put it, is a testament to her resilience in the face of criticism. She knows that no matter what she says or does, there will always be someone who disagrees, someone who takes offense to her words, and someone who will try to twist her intentions. But instead of letting those opinions define her, she's focused on what truly matters: the people she loves, her teammates, her coaches, and the fans who understand her message. It's easy to forget that Clark is only 22 years old. In a world where athletes are often thrust into the spotlight at a young age and expected to be perfect, it's impressive how grounded she remains. The pressures of being one of the most talked about athletes in the world could easily overwhelm someone in her position, especially when it comes to dealing with people who have no interest in understanding her perspective. But Caitlin Clark's response to criticism shows a remarkable level of emotional intelligence. She isn't interested in pleasing everyone, and she isn't afraid to stand up for what she believes in, even if it means upsetting a few people along the way. What's more, Clark's ability to block out the external noise is a skill that sets her apart from many athletes, especially those who are quick to defend themselves or engage in public battles over social media. While other players might get bogged down by Twitter wars or inflammatory comments from pundits, Caitlin Clark rises above it all. Her strength lies in her unwavering focus on what truly matters: the game, her teammates, and her authentic self. This isn't about appeasing critics or pandering to any particular group. This is about staying true to who she is and continuing to elevate her game, both on and off the court. But what's even more impressive is how Clark has channeled the criticism into something positive. Instead of letting it derail her, she's used it as fuel to continue her mission of promoting equality and amplifying voices that have been historically silenced. It would be easy for her to retreat into the comfort of her success and avoid any controversy, but Caitlin Clark isn't like most athletes. She understands that being a role model means using your platform to create change, even if it comes with a price. And as the backlash continues to come her way, she remains unshaken, committed to her purpose, and driven to be a force for good in the world of sports. Her critics want her to apologize, to back down, to conform to their expectations. But Caitlin Clark's response has been clear. She will not apologize for using her voice to advocate for change. Whether they like it or not, she's here to stay, and she will continue to speak her truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may make some people feel. Because in the end, the only opinion that truly matters is her own, and she knows that the fight for a more inclusive and equitable future in sports is worth every ounce of resistance she faces. Caitlin Clark's journey in the spotlight has been nothing short of meteoric. From the moment she burst onto the national scene, it was clear that she had something special, not just in terms of her skills on the basketball court, but in how she carried herself with remarkable poise and wisdom beyond her years. What's most impressive about Caitlin is her ability to maintain perspective, even when faced with constant scrutiny. Despite the pressures of being in the public eye, she's never lost sight of who she is and what she stands for. This is a young woman who understands the value of hard work, work, the significance of her voice, and the responsibility that comes with her platform. At just 22 years old, Caitlin Clark has already achieved what many athletes could only dream of. But as she reflected in her Time magazine interview, her success isn't just about talent, it's about perspective. She's had to navigate both the highs and lows of her career, and rather than letting the external noise define her, she's learned to filter out the distractions and stay true to herself. Clark recognizes that not everyone will agree with her views or appreciate the way she chooses to use her voice, but that's something she's come to terms with. She's developed a deep understanding that growth, both as an athlete and as a person, often involves making tough choices and sticking to your beliefs even when those choices aren't popular. What's striking is that Caitlin Clark doesn't seem to see herself as an untouchable icon or an athlete above reproach. She's grounded and self-aware, constantly reflecting on how she can evolve and grow, not just on the court, but in every aspect of her life. That's why, despite all the praise and accolades she's received, she remains humble. She knows where she came from, and she credits her rise to a combination of hard work, the guidance of her mentors, and the unwavering support of her teammates and coaches. Her success is not just a result of individual effort, but the collective strength of the people who've helped shape her along the way. That humility is a key part of the authenticity she carries in every interview and every interaction. What Caitlin also understands, perhaps better than many athletes, is the importance of authenticity. She's never been afraid to speak her truth, whether it's about the inequalities she sees in sports or her belief in the power of black athletes. Her willingness to express her thoughts, even when they're controversial or misunderstood, comes from a place of conviction. She knows that the only way to truly grow as a person is to be honest with yourself and with others, even if that means stepping into uncomfortable conversations. This is a trait that is increasingly rare in an age where many athletes feel pressured to say the right thing or avoid sensitive topics altogether. Caitlin doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the walk, leading by example in how she handles not just her successes, but her struggles as well. In dealing with the backlash over her comments, Clark has proven that growth is not always about appeasing your critics. It's about staying true to your beliefs, even when those beliefs don't fit neatly into the expectations others have for you. Her perspective on growth is rooted in resilience. She knows that every challenge she faces, whether it's being misquoted, criticized, or misunderstood, is an opportunity for her to refine her character and become a stronger leader. The way she has handled these pressures shows that she's not just growing as an athlete, but as a person who's actively working to shape a more inclusive and understanding future for women's sports. Furthermore, Caitlin's growth is reflected in how she views the WNBA and her role within it. While some might see her as a mere product of the league's popularity, Caitlin views herself as part of something much larger than just her own career. She's a connector, using her visibility to bridge the gap between the past and the future of women's basketball. Her ability to speak openly about race, privilege, and equality is part of her commitment to pushing the league and society forward. Clark isn't waiting for change to happen, she's helping to create it. Whether it's advocating for more recognition of black athletes or pushing for greater diversity in coverage, she's committed to making the world of sports a place where everyone can be seen, heard, and celebrated. In the end, Caitlin Clark's personal growth is about more than just basketball. It's about being an authentic leader who understands the weight of her words and the impact they can have. As she continues to navigate her career, she's proving that being true to yourself is the key to lasting success. It's this authenticity, mixed with her undeniable talent and passion for change, that will make Caitlin Clark not just a future star, but a transformational figure in sports. As Caitlin Clark continues to rise, it's clear that her influence stretches far beyond the basketball court. She's not just a star athlete, she's a beacon for authenticity, allyship, and the power of using one's platform for change. Despite the critics and the backlash, Clark stands firm in her beliefs, proving that true growth isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about staying true to your values and pushing forward no matter the challenges. Her journey is a reminder that leadership comes in many forms. It's not always about scoring the most points or winning the most awards. Sometimes it's about using your voice to lift others and standing tall in the face of adversity. Caitlin Clark is doing exactly that, and the future of the WNBA and sports as a whole looks brighter because of it. So whether you agree with her or not, one thing is certain, Caitlin Clark is here to stay, and she's only getting started. If you're ready to see how her story unfolds, make sure to follow her journey. The next chapter of women's basketball is in her hands.